Yeah.
No, I'm not online yet. He is.
I got you.
What do you think?
Yeah,
You're
no,
welcome.
I'm not online yet, but, I gotta do that.
I'm gonna call Dory and tell her too.
Yeah,
Heard it is.
she knows how.
Yeah, I was at that transportation
I
thing
will.
last week, so I couldn't go to the meeting Wednesday, and then I was gone all week, and so, anyway, so I have to get on top of that. Okay, so let's see, this is breast cancer awareness, this is that.
This is my spot.
What is this? Thank you. Okay. What is this? Oh, Halloween Harvest Festival. Okay, there we go, 6:30. Okay. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, for the study session today on the traffic study on Cottonwood Lane and Mission Parkway. And so, Larry, will you start, or are we going to go ahead? Okay, okay.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to present in study session format. As the mayor and council is aware, staff had introduced the concept of a potential roundabout at the Mission Parkway, Cottonwood Lane intersection a few months back. And at that study session, mayor and council had several questions related to the infrastructure that staff has actually developed the study that is included in the council's packet this evening. We also have a presentation that we'll have Amy make, but what I'd like to do is hand it over to the Public Works team. I think Natalie is taking this first leg of the presentation, and so I'll hand it over to Natalie Stevens and let her make additional introductions.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Natalie Stevens with the Public Works Department. I'm joined by Dwayne Eitel, our Deputy Public Works Director, and Clark Klatnoff, our City Traffic Engineer. And today we're going to go over the traffic study for Mission Parkway and Cottonwood Lane. And with that, I'll kick it over to Amy Moran with Wilson and Company.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's really nice to be back here again today. I know it's been a bit, so great to see some familiar faces and come to talk to you a little bit more about what we're looking at for this intersection of Cottonwood Lane and Mission Parkway. I know that you've met on this in the past, and I know you've heard sort of what are the current issues that are being dealt with right now. Obviously, there's a high volume of traffic on Cottonwood Lane, as well as the conflicting volume of traffic that's trying to enter the facility from Mission Parkway. We're dealing with high speeds. We'll talk about those during the presentation, the travel speeds along Cottonwood Lane. We'll also dig a little bit deeper into the delays that are currently occurring during the peak period, particularly for those northbound lefts off of Mission Parkway. I think one of the other important things to note is that, you know, there are some things going on there at that intersection. With a single lane in each direction, we've got high speeds of traffic. As people are slowing to make turns or stopping to make turns, people are deciding to maneuver around them on the shoulders of the road. We've got vehicles on Mission Parkway that are getting frustrated with their wait times, and they're maybe being a little bit riskier with the gaps that they would accept to enter into that high-speed traffic. So those are things that we'll also want to consider as we talk about safety a little bit today as well. I think when you last met, you were really focused particularly on traffic signal versus roundabout as it relates to that existing condition. And I believe one of the questions was also, well, what about an always stop? I mean, it's an option, right? So we dug a little bit deeper into those three traffic control conditions relative to the existing condition that's there today, which is just the stop sign on that northbound approach to the intersection. And what we did was we looked at these existing peak volumes, and we developed, using a tool, a traffic engineering tool, simulations for each of those conditions. So what does it look like today during that peak period? What does it look like if we were to put in an always stop? What does it look like with a traffic signal, and what does it look like with a roundabout? And so what I have for you here is just, it's basically a stack of those four conditions. So in your upper left is what it is today. It's a stop sign on that northbound approach. You can see there's a long line of traffic that's waiting to be able to make that turn. The one on the upper right is the always stop control. So you can see what happens there. It's doing a pretty good job getting rid of that queue in the northbound direction, right? Those people are able to make their maneuvers because people are having to stop for them. But you can see the queue that's building up now in the eastbound direction. If you were to signalize it, traffic's moving pretty well. Still a little bit of a queue there in the northbound direction when it's approaching that red light, but it clears for the most part, as a few vehicles will stack up on eastbound, westbound Cottonwood. And then the final condition is that roundabout, and you can see, relatively speaking, there's very little, if any, queuing that's occurring. Now, this is identical vehicle conditions. You can look at the colors of the vehicle as they go through. You can correlate them from one condition to another. You can pick, for example, you see the white car going through the roundabout. You can see the two white cars approaching. You see what happens. They've made it through the roundabout. They're waiting at the signalized intersection. So these are identical volume conditions. We're dealing with the same vehicles traversing the same intersection. So a couple takeaways from that. If you look at the comparative delay, so today where we're at right now, if you look at that northbound delay under that existing condition, those cars are waiting 70 to 80 seconds, so almost a minute and a half in that line of traffic before they're able to get out and make their turn. If you put in an always stop, you can reduce that northbound delay to under 10 seconds. But you are going to add additional delay to that eastbound and westbound traffic. So you'll see there that eastbound 30 to 40 seconds now they're waiting versus 10 to 15 seconds in the westbound direction as they approach that stop sign. Traffic signal, you can get down to manageable delays. I'm sure no surprise to anybody. We also looked at what if we were to install additional turn lanes, right? Instead of just putting a traffic signal up as it is the condition is today, what if we put additional turn lanes in? That benefits quite a bit in that eastbound direction. You can see it reduces from 10 to 12 seconds to about 6 to 7, and that's because of all those vehicles that are able to make that eastbound right turn on red. after they come to a stop. They're not stuck behind a car waiting to go through the intersection. But you'll see that from a roundabout perspective, each of those approaches is having delays on average of under 5 seconds per vehicle. So it's a pretty substantial gain. The very final row that's in this column is just, on general, if you were to look at all of the intersection, of all of the vehicles that transverse that intersection, what is the average delay? So the total travel time, the total time people are waiting, divided by the number of vehicles that are going through. The existing condition always stop, it ranges about 22 seconds. You're just kind of trading who's having to deal with the delay, right? You can bring that delay down to about 10 seconds. We've got that 12 seconds, 9 seconds if you put in a traffic signal. But again, with a roundabout in total, the average car that passes through there, and this is during the peak period, is about 3 seconds. So there's quite a bit of benefit from a congestion and queuing perspective. So what else? So I know we talked about the speeds. We actually went out and collected some speed data. West of the intersection, there's posted speed a bit further down, about 40 miles per hour. As you go east of the intersection, the posted speed is 50 miles per hour. Generally speaking, both sides of the intersection, people are traveling through average speed at 50 miles per hour. 85th percentile speed, which is a rule of thumb that we used in traffic engineering. In fact, that's usually what the engineering community, their guidelines would say you should set your posted speed to your 85th percentile speed. It's actually 56 miles per hour. We unfortunately have people who are also going through there at almost, 88 miles per hour. I said it, maybe it's the DeLorean for Back to the Future, who knows? But it's pretty high speed. So you have to start thinking about the cars that, in the way that they're traveling through this intersection and the speed at which they're approaching this intersection on Cottonwood Lane. And that's where you start to think about the safety, right? You've got cars that are approaching this at rather high speeds. Even today, people are maybe taking some risky gaps to be able to make that northbound left turn maneuver. When you put in a traffic signal, certainly you're slowing the speeds down as people are approaching the intersection, unless you have somebody that decides that they're really going to try to beat that red light. And then you might actually increase your speeds. You're also dealing with the fact that you may have people who are not paying as close attention as perhaps they ought to be, and maybe they think that person in front of them is going to try to make that red light, and they're going to too. And so then you oftentimes might end up with rear-end collisions. So this is some data that we pulled for some intersections in Pinal County. The first line is 5 different intersections that are configured as a roundabout. The second one was 10 intersections that are configured with a traffic signal. You might ask, why are there more for the traffic signal than the roundabout? Well, there's just more signalized intersections than there are roundabouts to pick from. So we also wanted to make sure that when we were looking at these comparisons, that we were comparing apples to apples. So we also looked at intersections with fewer than 15,000 entering vehicles, and that's on a daily basis, 15,000 entering vehicles per day. We wanted to look at the sort of lower volume locations, probably not fair to compare a roundabout to a very heavily traveled signalized intersection that has tens of thousands of vehicles traversing them. But the key here is that the roundabouts have about half as many, so that 7.8 versus the 15.9, about half as many crashes on average than the signalized intersections. We also have a value on here, crash severity index, and you can see that's a bit lower as well. That crash severity index, I'm not going to get into the complications about the calculations, but really what it is an indicator of the higher that crash severity index, the more likely or the more there are observed crashes that are fatal crashes, or what we would call serious injury crashes. Basically, those are the crashes that often result from vehicles traveling at higher travel speeds. And I think, the key here about roundabouts is when roundabouts are designed, for those of you that may have had a chance to travel through them, you know, they're designed for vehicles to enter and traverse the roundabout 25 miles per hour, maybe even slower. So it really brings those speeds down as they travel through the intersection. And so even if there is a crash, which we're seeing that there's about half as many, the severity of those crashes is typically limited to a property damage, right? Maybe a fender bender type thing. So I think that's really important to consider as well as you think about the options for this location. I believe one of the other things that was questioned for the last one was just people were kind of wondering, well, what does it cost us to do this? Is there a benefit to putting in a roundabout or a traffic signal? So kind of digging through and looking at recent bids and things for what's required, you can see the signalized intersection is a little bit more from a construction perspective than a roundabout. It's the pavement plus all of the equipment that goes along with the traffic signal. The other factor here is that from a maintenance perspective, roundabouts are also, generally speaking, they're lower maintenance costs, again, because you're not dealing with the equipment that's associated with the traffic signal. I think somebody else had maybe posed a question, well, if we're anxious to get something done at this location, could we put in a portable signal? So, we checked with our friends at Pinal County. They had some recent bids for purchase of portable traffic signal, and those bids were ranging from about $175,000 to $225,000 to be able to outfit one intersection. What's not included in that cost is the fact that you've got these portable signals. They're intended to be portable. They're on some kind of a base. You need to put in a pad to stabilize that base. You need to put in barriers to keep people from running into the base and knocking the traffic signal over because it's not routed heavily in the ground. So those are other factors that would need to be considered as well. And I think we also had a couple questions related to oversized vehicles. I know this is often a hot button when it comes to roundabouts. This might be a little engineering for you from a figure, but what we're attempting to show here is this is the roundabout design. And if you can see the kind of blue trucks in the eastbound direction, you can follow the path of the blue lines that those trucks are taking when they enter and exit a roundabout. You can see that there's ample room for them to, and these are large vehicles. Correct me if they're WB65s? 70s. Okay. So these are long trucks. That's a path for a long truck. They're able to maneuver it just fine. I can speak from experience on past projects. Actually, I worked on a highway project where they were installing a roundabout on SR 189 coming out of the Port of Nogales. And we in fact heard from a lot of truckers that they do often have a preference for roundabouts because they're not forced to have to always come to that complete stop and then have to deal with the startup factor, right? It takes them a longer time to get going from a complete stop. So sometimes there's preference for this. I think the other thing that's important to recognize here is that when these roundabouts are designed, that center area, that center kind of median that's there, that's raised, it is constructed, or it's designed to be constructed with mountable curbs so that if you do have an exceptionally maybe oversized wide load or something like that, you're still able to navigate that because you're able to go up. So you're not going over like you would at an intersection, an actual full typical curb. You're talking about a mountable curb, right? So it helps with those types of operations as well. And I think this also displays one of the questions that we had. It was about the right of way. So in other words, how much additional land are we going to have to purchase to be able to put these solutions in? So I took a look at that as well. A traffic signal is going to be about 14,300 square feet. That accounts for the room that's needed to install the poles. It accounts for the room in this particular example for adding those additional turn lanes that would be desirable. So there's the need for that pavement as well. For the roundabout, in contrast, it's 12,800 feet in this diagram. So they're pretty similar. I think after all things considered, I know they came to you last time and they proposed that the recommendation was around about, I think what we're seeing even with this additional information is that there are still even more reasons why a roundabout is a smart choice for this location. And I know sometimes I get from folks, well, if you're putting in why don't we put in roundabouts everywhere, right? If they're that great. The reality is that it's very case specific. And in this particular condition, because of the speeds, because of the volume of traffic, right, it's kind of in that sweet spot. It's not too much. And, you know, maybe even most important is the consideration that the vehicles that are of the highest movement at this location are those eastbound right turns and those northbound left turns. If you put in a traffic signal, you're going to have to stop those vehicles. If you put in a roundabout, those vehicles are not going to be conflicting with each other, because those vehicles that are the eastbound rights are going to be exiting the roundabout before those northbound vehicles that are destined to the westbound direction, before they would actually have to enter the roundabout. So you're removing that conflict altogether. So we still stand here today with a recommendation that we think the roundabout is a really great choice for this particular location. And with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Amy. Questions? Yes, Bob.
I noticed in your movement video,
The simulation?
your comparison of the four,
Mm-hmm.
the roundabout had a dedicated right turn off of Cottonwood, had a specific lane for that,
It does.
unless I imagined it.
Nope,
Oh, no.
you are correct, it's there.
Are we looking at that, or I like it, but I didn't see it on your later example.
That's part of the intent of what is being in design. It may be a little bit more exaggerated in this video to be able to make that distinction than what you can see on the actual design plans. But the intent would be to have that as a channelized right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any questions, comments? Sure, Matt.
The right-of-way, specifically on this, it's all on the south side of the road, east and west of the road. I mean, there's an irrigation ditch there. I know there's some other agriculture trees and stuff on the other side. If we looked at the cost of, I mean, it looks to me like it might be more than just acquiring right-of-way. Like you might have to do some infrastructure changes there.
Here. I'm gonna let Clark, I think, answer that, if you would, Clark.
Whether you select the roundabout or the traffic signal, the intent would be to not disturb the existing irrigation on the north side of the road. So there would be some shifting as necessary in order to avoid that conflict.
But on the south side, there's that, you said on the north, but on the south too?
On the north side, there's the irrigation. On the south side, there will be,
So
there
here?
will be more conflicts. Right.
I mean, are we anticipating that cost? I
Both
mean,
of them.
not just the land acquisition, but that might, I know we've dealt with it in other places.
Yeah, the cost estimates that we prepared were blind to utility relocation costs, because both of them would have utility relocation costs. Both of them would have irrigation impacts on the south side. So it was blind to that. This is not to say that the cost estimates that were developed are supposed to be, let's go to construction bids. It's supposed to be make it as neutral as possible to give you an idea of what the actual, just the facility itself, the pavement widening and the traffic signal.
Yeah, so like you said, stoplight versus roundabout, it's gonna be less than 2,000 square feet difference, I think, or right around 2,000,
Yeah.
I think you said,
Right.
which is not a lot.
Correct.
And then the other question was, I know you did the long semi trucks. One thing that was brought up to our attention, might be taking Sean's question here, but the width of some farm stuff. And I know we're limited on the freeway side, obviously, by the width of the overpass. So I mean, is it, and specifically combines or harvesters?
So I think, again, this goes to the point of the curbs would be mountable curbs, so those types of vehicles would be able to
Ride sideways.
I'm sorry?
Just kind of ride sideways around those curbs and just kind of hike one
Yeah.
tire up and road around it.
Yeah, I mean, they would be able to navigate that. I will tell you that I actually live in an area in Phoenix that has roundabouts, and I see like very large vehicles transverse those roundabouts on a daily basis, and they'll take it a little slower, and people are patient with them, they see them. might be a little bit better than having to come to a stop and then start back up again, constantly. So it's just it's a trade-off of, you navigate it a little bit differently, but it's certainly navigable.
Typically, would recommend that they're a minimum of 3 inches high, a maximum of 4 inches high. And rather than a typical curb having more of a vertical face, or sometimes in residential areas, you get a rolled face, is you actually slant it back. It's something that if you have a vehicle, a car, that inadvertently falls asleep or hits it, you don't want them ricocheting off of it. It's a mountable curb that isn't going to seriously hurt a automobile at a faster speed. For a larger vehicle, it's very mountable.
And are those all steel reinforced, those curbs and everything like that?
No.
No, it's just,
No, it's just a concrete curb.
It's just concrete curb.
Yeah, it's just a concrete curve that's gonna be up 3 inches over 6 to 9 inches.
okay.
So it's relatively flat.
I'm sorry, Matt, you done?
Sure, okay.
I just
go
got a
ahead.
quick question on the speed at which both of these can be constructed. It's either a signal or roundabout at that intersection. What would be the quickest to solve our solutions at that corner? Solve our problem at that corner, I should say.
There are two elements. One is the paving. The paving would probably be a bit faster with the signalized intersection, but the signal equipment for our cabinets now are taking us about a year after they're ordered to get the cabinets. So the construction for the pavement for either of the two alternatives would put you in the 4-month time frame, but then we would have to wait an extra 7 to 9 months in order to get the signals, and then we would go into the construction mode.
Okay, so it should be faster for a roundabout than in the long run, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then as construction is progressing on a roundabout, I've never seen one of these done in this type of area. How would traffic be diverted with that construction? Would you have to shut off that whole intersection for a period of time to make that roundabout in the center, or how would that work?
The roundabout itself is designed with a 16-foot of minimum pavement, and as Amy was pointing out, there is pavement widening in order to accommodate the WB 67. So in this particular case, we would split the phasing of the roundabout. We would build one side of it first, and then go ahead and slow traffic down and put traffic head-to-head on that side with maybe a little bit of temporary pavement, and then build the other side to complete it.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to shut that intersection down at all?
No, we wouldn't want to shut it down. That
No,
would
no.
be a challenge
Yes.
for the community.
Especially around the holidays, right? with all the shoppers
Absolutely.
out
We're coming to the mall.
Anything else, Sean?
That's it for me.
Okay. Anthony, anything? Any other? No, and I think that you've addressed some of the concerns that I get and hear about it. Speed is one of the biggest ones. People are concerned with the speed on Cottonwood Lane and how to slow it down. And so you did a good job explaining that you have to slow down. To go through the roundabout. In areas that have roundabouts, when you talk about some of the accidents, is it speed related, or are they more just confusion related? Do you have those statistics at all?
I'm going to give you my opinion, because I don't have the crash data in front of me. But my opinion, again, I said, I drove through roundabouts at least twice a day in order to get to and from my house. In my opinion, and what I have witnessed in traversing roundabouts, is that it is somebody who is maybe not too familiar with the area. They're not paying attention. Maybe some of the typical things that you would get in a crash condition anyway, right? Somebody who is distracted by something. I do think regardless of what you do, when you make a change in traffic control, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve associated with that. You're going to have some education. You're going to have some, notifications and signage about a change in the traffic control ahead and all of those aspects. So, again, at 25 miles per hour, it's much more difficult to have a severe crash than it is at an intersection where you have people, traversing it at 50 miles per hour.
Okay. And then Amy, you said that, why a roundabout in this area? It's not like we have roundabouts all through the city. We're not recommending putting roundabouts on our major intersections. And you said it's very case specific and because of the volume, the traffic. So the traffic, yes, there's a lot going on there, but it's not a high volume area. So, can you explain a little bit more when you say case specific and why this intersection warrants it? With the
Sure,
traffic?
absolutely. Well, we just touched on the speed aspect of it, right? I think that's a very important consideration because we've shown you the traffic signal will work. It'll work well. I mean, it'll handle the volume of traffic, but it doesn't have the benefits, the safety benefits that the roundabout will bring for this location.
Okay.
I do think, again, as I mentioned, the primary flow of traffic, there's a huge volume of traffic that's heading east and making that right turn onto Mission Parkway. There's a very large volume of traffic that's heading north from Mission Parkway and making a left turn onto Cottonwood Lane. If you look now, as you pointed out, there is a channelized right turn lane that is going to pull those vehicles that are making that eastbound to southbound right turn out of the roundabout entirely. So that northbound traffic now, they won't be making left turns anymore, right? They're going to be making a right and they're going to be navigating their way around the roundabout. They will not be conflicting. They will not have to be waiting for those people, guessing what those people are going to do, trying to figure out if it's okay for them to enter because those people will already be removed. They won't have to be concerned about yielding it. So I think the fact that you have those complementary movements in the condition of a roundabout is another very favorable factor for this location.
Okay. And what is there signage when you come up to a roundabout? Is it just a sign? Do you put the vibrating strips? What is usually put before a roundabout?
So typically what I have seen is that you'll have the yield signs
Okay.
that would alert traffic. You might have some, in this case, you might have, some sort of directional signage to alert people that to, take the right. If you're going to Mission Parkway, it'll say Mission Parkway, stay right, so they know to not enter the roundabout, but to exit before. A lot of times the signs are very specific and diagrammatic where they'll actually show you, stay straight to go here, veer right to go here, so.
And GPS catches it too. They'll say, take it the second right, or, whatever, right?
Right,
Don't they? Yeah.
correct. Yep.
Right, okay. Okay, so, I mean, it seems like, the semis, I do get that about large vehicles, but I would imagine those large vehicles, even on the regular road, have to be,
they gotta be careful no
cautious
matter
and
where
slow
they're at.
down and everything, so I know.
They manage around all kinds of tight spaces all the time.
Exactly,
They do a
right.
good job.
Okay. Okay,
The other thing I would like to see, I mean, if we are gonna put signs up, it'd be nice like in the valley, how, I-10 West, I-10 East, or whatever, how they've got it actually painted on the asphalt, And that might kind of help the initial transition. If we go with the roundabout, that might help that transition. If it's actually, if you're headed east, this is where you're going,
Or
Something.
Yeah, that's true.
South, to go this way, to the mall.
Yeah.
Promenade this way or something, in this lane, so might help that transition a
yeah,
little
that's a
bit.
good point. Okay, so no other comments, so Larry would.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, typically at this point, we would begin part of our public outreach. I'm looking at Kevin and maybe Dwayne to ultimately get their approvals of that. And so if the mayor and council is open to that, we can start some level of public outreach on the concept. I would encourage our team to begin to work on our right-of-way, on the potential due diligence for the right-of-way as well. The last thing, the messaging related to getting these projects done is being heard loud and clear. And so identifying those conflicts will be important. And so we would likely start doing that before coming back to council if council is open to that, to the next steps.
Okay.
Yes.
Everyone
Yes.
feel good about that?
Open.
Okay,
Yep.
All right,
there you go.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we'll go ahead and close this study session. Did you guys need a break? Should we want to take a couple minutes? Are you all good? Okay.
Anybody else, everybody else?
You guys are good? Okay. We'll wait here a minute.
Breaking or not?
No. We'll just wait for these guys to kind of clear out a little bit.